branding. I wanted really before I'm going to turn it over for questions, but a couple of years ago, everybody, I guess it's been a while since Simon Cowell picked up the Coca-Cola Cup on America's Got Talent. You know
Idol.
what I mean. But branding has gone through a lot of different phases, and it's got a lot of, it's probably got a lot more sophisticated. But is it still? It's now become acceptable. It used to be back in the day that ad sales had a fit when you try to put branding or integration into a show. Where are we at with that as far as part of our package? When we come in as a producer, can we come in with sponsors? Can we come in with branding possibilities? How do you feel?
You're pitching a different division.
You
I
are
mean-
not always. Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Yes, you can. I think the short answer is you can come in with anything you want. Because today, we have to figure out how to monetize these shows smarter and better. So, yes, to Charlie's point, you're pitching a different division. Maybe you have ad sales involved much more, especially with national brands. But there is such a win if I can connect all those players and actually get a media buy out of something that came with a piece of talent, or that I'm able to do an integration that is smart, and to Suzanne's point earlier, not, stop here for an Avengers premiere. I don't think any show or any, especially branding opportunity, comes together the same way. But if you can really find the way to bring that all together, it's a win. It's a financial win, part of our business.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a push, as I said earlier, for greater, bigger integrations. I like it when producers come in and they've already talked to advertisers about some aspect of the show that, that they want to be involved in. Because again, it sort of speaks to a point that was made earlier here, that it's advertiser friendly, which is something that is important to what we do.
How about from the studio side there, Bruce? What do you?
We do think about it, but as I think Susanne made the point earlier, it's got to be right for the creative, and it's got to be the right sort of association. And the show that we're doing with NBC has a lot of integration, and it's a big sort of complex machine in terms of getting it done. But one of the end games is called Win the Ads. So it's organic to the format. The gameplay is fantastic, and we're working with NBC on the best way to bring that to life. But there's other shows that we thought, does it make sense to bring an advertiser on board? And sometimes it does. There's a pilot that we're looking at from the BBC that would make great sense for one of the big car companies, but it would only make sense for this car company and not this car company. And so it's a consideration, but it's got to be right for the format, it's got to be right for the creative.
Okay.
It's a really difficult needle to thread, because the two 800-pound gorillas you're bringing into a room together don't have the same need. Like Coca-Cola, there's a quote that I used to hear all the time where people would say, the executive at Coca-Cola wakes up in the morning and thinks, how do I sell more Coke? He doesn't think, how do I get Simon Cowell to hold a Coke on American Idol? And the network executive wakes up and says, how do I get a hit? How do I get more audience to watch? How do I drive more viewership? Because the other thing is, if I bring them Coke doesn't really just solve their problem. They still have to sell another 15 ad units during whatever the show is. So what's going to drive something that all the other advertisers are also going to want to put units around? And so, we had, and I guess to a degree have, a division of my company that does branding. But what's interesting is I rolled it into my business development, because what became more interesting is, look, for me, the only thing I care about once it gets past, I love the show, I love the content, I want to produce this, then the only thing I'm thinking about is, how do I get to season 2, or how do I get to season 3? And so from my perspective, it's less important for me to make a lot of money by bringing in Coke and getting cash and all that other stuff than to figure out a way to do something integrated with Coke, and instead of going with ad sales, going with the marketing department of the agency and saying, how do we get end caps at Walmart that are going to talk about my show, that are going to sell more Coke, and that are going to get the network to get more eyeballs? Because the one place where the cuts always happen the fastest in the network is off-air ad buying. So you see a lot less billboards and bus signs and all this other stuff, except for Netflix, who apparently money is growing on trees.
Endless amount of money.
Yeah. So your job as a producer, really, and it's why people are pushing for us to, every time I go into a network, they're like, well, how many Twitter followers does the host you're looking at have? That kind of stuff. How can we push out the message that this show is coming out? That's what they care about. Well, then you are aligned with the brand, right? Because Coke does want more eyeballs. They want to be cool. They want to speak to that specific demographic. I mean, MTV has the like penultimate, like the greatest group of people in terms of who their core audience is for almost every ad buyer in the world in terms of brands, right? So how do you align yourself with them so that their show and the product they're selling are going to actually work together? And it's a brave new world, because it used to be, yeah, just give Simon the Coke and he'll drink it and somehow that's going to translate into sales. Now as a producer, you also have to sort of be a madman. You have to be like all these different things.
You have to start with the show. I mean, the one thing people
Yeah.
do, you know, you can't forget that it's about the content and about the storytelling and about how the show keeps people and keeps them coming back week after week, because there's so much out there and it's so hard to cut through that you just have to forget season 2, you just want them to come back next week, you know, and actually want to watch this.
You know, it's funny, I was just thinking the exact same thing. That's where my head was going too. And I was thinking, you know, Victoria Justice, who I had in a series at the beginning of the year called Eye Candy, has over 6 million Twitter followers. And she, you know, tweeted out to them aggressively for every show. Didn't move the needle on the show, unfortunately. So it just comes down to the show. It really does. Good marketing and good scheduling, but the show has to be great.
Social network is an interesting thing, because this weekend, San Andreas is going to do like $48 million this weekend, and they're basically crediting it entirely to The Rock and what he did with his social. But the thing that's interesting about his social is he's got like 72 million followers across all of his things. His engagement is among the top 5 or 6 people in the world. And like a lot of times when I go into network pitches and they say like, well, how many followers do they have? I get this like blank stare a lot of times when I go back. I'm like, don't worry about their total number. Just look at their engagements. If they have, take Victoria, for example. I don't know what her engagement is, but let's say she has 6 million followers. If every time she tweets, she gets 5,000 likes, then her engagement sucks. If she gets 100,000 likes, her engagement's really good, which means when you amplify that on MTV or something like that, then that actually matters, because that's driving sales. That's like when she says, buy my t-shirt, and people go off and buy her t-shirt, then you can actually track that. There are analytics that do that kind of stuff. And by the way, just to roll back, I'm just saying this specifically to this vertical. They're absolutely right. The only thing that matters, going back to my original point like 5 questions ago, is your show has to be the best version. It has to be the best content. It has to be really good. Everything else is irrelevant if you don't nail that.
I never asked the question, how many Twitter followers does someone have? Because I'm still a believer that TV makes stars. You know, you can have big stars. Victoria Justice was established. Katherine Heigl's show was just canceled at NBC. You can have big stars on TV. It doesn't matter. TV makes stars.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Rich Kids of Beverly Hills started from the Rich Kids of Instagram, explosion. And but times 10 the number of Instagram followers, Twitter followers that, the 2 core girls have had since the show. The show sort of just exploded their social media following. But we looked into social media for that show because of the whole Rich Kids of Instagram trend.